Global warming is the consistent rise in the Earth's temperature which leads to climate change, meaning change in the Earth's average weather. Carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, is released into the atmosphere through the burning of fossil fuels, fertilizer usage, and the destruction of forests. Other greenhouse gases include methane, water vapor, and ozone. The rising level of greenhouse gases result in the greenhouse effect, or the rising of temperature as greenhouse gases trap energy from the sun, thus causing ice caps to melt, sea temperatures to rise, and an increase in the number and intensity of hurricanes and tornadoes. This also causes heat waves, depletion of the ozone layer, and a lack of food due to the change in climate. While the greenhouse effect is necessary for inhabitants of this earth, the increase in gases and energy stored in the atmosphere can lead to drastic effects on our ecosystem, such as drought and desertification, ocean acidification, increased number and intensity of all storms, loss of land, and loss of biodiversity.
If we do not address climate change, so much of the beautifully diverse wildlife that roams our Earth will be no more. According to National Wildlife Federation, polar bears rely heavily on Arctic sea ice, which is rapidly disappearing due to global warming. In Hudson Bay, polar bears are starving during the long summer months as the ice they rely on to hunt for food melts earlier each spring and later in the fall. Climate change has altered food availability for migratory species. Birds arrive on schedule to find their food sources. Insect seeds, flowering plants have hatched or bloomed too early or not at all. Milder winters cause seasonal food catches to spoil, so wildlife species like the gray jay, depending on food stores to survive the winter, are left without sustenance. Innocent animals are dying, and there are way too many people in the world not reacting to it. If these were people, there would be a public outrage. Animals are living, breathing creatures and should be viewed as such.
While wealthier areas have resources to adapt to change, poorer areas do not have this luxury and must seek out other ways to adapt and survive. An example of this is seen in Bangladesh. An already poor country, Bangladesh has been hit by serious weather in the past decade. This has forced families who have lived and farmed in the countryside to relocate to cities. There has also been an increase in families marrying off their daughters at very young ages. While the country prohibits this, it is done because families feel that the burden of having to pay and feed for another person is far too great. Despite lack of intervention, the solution is flawed in that the male's family requires that the female's family pays a dowry. If they are not able to, they will send the female back until it is paid. Since families are already too poor to afford having a daughter, they are put into debt trying to pay off the dowry, as they must take out a loan with hefty interest. Debts are taken very seriously, and sometimes, if not paid in a certain amount of time, can lead to death.
Women in developing countries are the ones most likely responsible for providing resources such as food and water. On average, 63% of rural households depend on women to obtain drinking water for the home. According to the UN, women in sub-Saharan Africa spend an average of about 40 billion hours a year collecting water. As climate change decreases water availability, the amount of time dedicated to collecting water might increase, leaving girls with less time to go to school and reinforcing the cycle of poverty. Climate change is affecting the progression of women in the world, which can prove why climate change is such a large women's issue. Climate change is happening whether we can accept it or not. I believe that the world can stop climate change, but it starts with accepting the facts on it and acting to make a difference.
Within areas of climate change policy, women are extremely underrepresented. Currently, only 7 of the world's 150 elected national representatives are women, and women scientists make up only 15% of most of the authors of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change climate assessment reports. However, these numbers drastically underappreciate and undermine the involvement women have in environmental projects and tasks. According to Argos in York, 60 to 80% of grassroots environmental organization membership and environmental reform projects are composed of women. Additionally, 2/3 of all water and food sources in the global south are gathered by women. Given these statistics, it is no wonder why we have so many environmental issues, especially with climate change. Selah explains that when governments, corporate think tanks, and multilateral agencies deliberate on strategies for combating climate change, you can be sure they'll bypass one highly important variable. Global warming causes, effects, and solutions are gendered. We have left the responsibility of the well-being of all species in the hand of a select few. These select few will continue to push the boundaries and levels of society's well-being if we do not stop and intervene. We need more women and minorities representing and presenting ecological issues and solutions. We need ecofeminism on an institutional level.
There seems to be a focus in conversation around the consequences of climate change and not so much around what we can do to prevent them from occurring. There are many ways that we can contribute to the extinction of these climate-threatening conditions. First, we can limit the use of fossil fuels. Burning things such as coal, oil, and eventually natural gas takes an immediate toll on the environment by releasing toxic chemicals and fumes. Secondly, we could work on consuming less food, fuel, and other miscellaneous products in general. An easy way to do this would be to use reusable bags when grocery shopping, carpooling to work or events, and limiting the amount of food wasted when preparing meals. Third and foremost, we can strive to be more efficient simply by doing more with less. Limiting the amount of energy used in your household or workplace is an excellent place to start. Remember to turn off lights when they are not in use and to unplug cords that are also not in use to eliminate the wasting of energy.
No longer can we rely on our luck and resourcefulness to overcome any number of threats. We need ecofeminism. We need it now.